Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 16th episode of Limerick Junior Soccer Focus with myself, Adrian, Finnin, and joined once again by Aidan Ryan this evening as we dissect a very successful weekend, it's fair to say, Aidan, for the Limerick District League clubs. All three Limerick District League clubs getting through in the FAI Junior Cup. We'll start with what was the most notorious of them, I suppose, in terms of Fairview Rangers managed to overcome the challenge of Aidan Ryan. We spoke about it was going to be a really stiff challenge for Fairview. They won the game on penalties in the end, 5-3, with Jason Cross scoring the winning penalty. That only begins to tell the story, I suppose, Aidan. They were 2-1 down in the second half. They were reduced to 10 men with one of their main men in midfield, Stephen Bradley, being sent off early in the second half. It was certainly a display full of character and determination for Fairview, who overcame a real test in this one.
Absolutely, yeah. We said last week it was going to be a huge test for them, Adrian. Aidan Ryan going well at the top of the Premier League in Galway, have a decent record in the FAI in terms of getting to the latter stages. So to go up there and face the obstacles they did during the game, and to come through it, again, like you say, it shows the character, but it also shows the experience of the players on the pitch, that they actually managed the game throughout extra time and penalties, and to be a man down. And a player of the calibre of Stephen Bradley, who, by the way, would have also been taking a penalty and has a brilliant record. Has a brilliant record on penalties. They still came through it. Shows the strength of the character of the players and the personality they have. And you wouldn't back against them going all the way again this year, Adrian, would you? With a result like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It really does seem the FAI Junior Cup. How many times have we mentioned it? But it just seems absolutely entrenched in the DNA with Fairview. They just don't know how to lose in big games like that, do they?
Yeah, and if you look at the last time they won it, even Adrian under Jason Purcell, fantastic run they had in it. But every game seemed to be a struggle, didn't it? You know, getting by games 1-0, penalties, winning games with set pieces. You know, I can remember Clyde O'Connell probably being the top scorer in the FAI.
That's right.
The amount of goals he scored, and he was a centre half. So, listen, they've great pedigree in it. The players deserve great credit for coming through that match because, you know, Aidan Ryan must have thought it was done, Adrian. 2-1 up, playing against 10 men. You're coming to the end of extra time. I believe there was 7 or 8 minutes extra time, which seems injury time at the end of extra time, which seems a lot, or normal time, which seems a lot. But sure, great character to come through the game. And listen, when you work that hard during the 90 minutes and extra time, maybe you deserve that bit of luck, and they got that bit of luck and got through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know when we mentioned Fairview's signings at the start of the season, Jack Arrow was a late one, as we mentioned, Ed, and we only mentioned him last week as well. He's shown his weight in gold at the moment, isn't he, with the goals he's scoring, particularly that equaliser.
Yeah, and we did flag he's going to score a bag full of goals for the Fairview, Adrian, because they're going to give him the ammunition to score goals. They have the players around him, and I know the goals are well spread around the team with Dara Rainsford, Conor Coughlin, Shane Duggan, all chipping in, Jeffrey Judge chipping in with goals, Conor Ellis, but he's going to score his quota of goals for Fairview. And you know what? What a signing for Fairview now. When you think about it, and we were wondering about it at the start of the year. What a signing he's going to turn out to be. And in my opinion, a big loss to Regional.
Yeah, certainly. And speaking of Regional, that brings me perfectly on to the next result. They beat Strand Celtic. And again, it begins to tell the story. 3-2. The evergreen Kieran O'Connell with the winner for Regional. Always seems to be the main man in the big games for Regional. I did flag, Aidan, last week that Regional just seem to get through these games in these type of ties where they might be slight favourites. They managed to do it on this occasion. They'll be delighted to get through to the next round because obviously 2-2 away from home going into extra time, you might be fearing the worst a little.
Yeah, absolutely. And we called it last week, Adrian. We said it was going to be a big game for Regional. And that's what it turned out to be, because when you're still having a run in the FAI or even a provincial trophy like the Munster Junior, and maybe you're not going to win the league, and they're safe in the league, obviously, because they're in the top 6. Very important that you keep that run going, because your league form can be affected and dip as a result. So a big victory for them. You know, it was always going to be a lot closer than the previous round when they beat Coleraine from the CCSL. It was always going to be a tougher game. I thought it was a lot tougher than I expected it to be. Now, I thought they'd be a little bit more comfortable than they were. So Strand obviously put up a fantastic effort. on the day. And I was listening to Ryan McEnroe actually on Sunday afternoon. I picked him up on local radio above in Sligo, and he was very
dedication.
In defeat. Adrian, he said that he gave a lot of praise to regional. Now, to be fair to him, outside of the great run that his own team had, he was very complimentary of regional. I have to be fair about that. And as usual, like you said, your go-to man, Kieran O'Connell, how often has he been doing this down the years? Adrian chipping in with vital goals, filling in spots all over the pitch. A very important player for regional.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a bit more straightforward, Aidan, it's fair to say, for Ballynanty Rovers in LIT, as we expected. They had a 5-0 win over Castlefin Celtic. A couple of great goals scored, particularly from James Fitzgerald, actually, in this tie. I know there was 2 late goals for Ballynanty as well, and maybe in the last final 10 minutes. But, you know, we mentioned it last week, superb form at the moment that they're in. Come back from Christmas, 12 goals scored, none conceded. They're in really good form, but, you know, we would have expected them to get through this game. So it was a case of professional job done for Ballynanty.
Absolutely, Adrian. And we put the pressure on them a little bit last week, didn't we? We said they were red hot favourites for the match. And listen, they took it on with aplomb. And the big thing for me was, Adrian, they scored early in the match. Also tacked on a second before half-time. And again, when you're playing these games, you've got to give the opposition nothing to fight for in the second half. And you can be sure that the Castlefin manager, Raymond Foy, would have been saying to his team at half-time that we have to open up a bit now and go for it. And listen, that was going to play into Ballynanty's hands. You know, the midfield and the front runners Ballynanty have always going to be a huge threat with the power and pace they have. And great to see my former player, Adrian Power, tacking on 2 goals. He's in great form again this season. I thought he was player of the year in Limerick last season. And he's in terrific form again this season and leading from the front. Great to see. And listen, a fantastic victory for them. And they're going well on all fronts at the moment, Adrian. Ballynanty going well in the league. Looking forward to the draw in the Munster Junior Cup, which I believe is next Monday.
Yeah.
And now looking forward to a draw in the FAI. Tis going well for them, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that draw, we've got the last 16 draw. Threw up some interesting ties, Aidan, but we'll obviously focus on the Limerick ones for now. Fairview Rangers have a lengthy enough away trip again. It's a lot longer than that than right now, but they've got to Gorey Rangers, who I did see obviously earlier in the season against Somerville. I have to say, Aidan, it's very hard to judge them on that game. They were obviously red hot favourites going into that. It was a miserable day in Portland Park, but they did the job. Scored 2 early goals, tacked on another. So it was a professional enough job. We know that they've been in these type of games over the last number of years. They've been at this stage. I saw them, they pushed Sheriff really close in one season as well. That again, that's going to be a real tight one. I suppose it's funny because people have said to me during the week, Gorey are only 7th in the Wexford League, but if you actually look at the breakdown of fixtures, I mean, they've got 5 games in hand on the team in the top position in the league. I mean, that league seems to be all over the place, fixtures-wise, Aidan. So, again, look, it's going to be very tough for Fairview. You can't really go on the fixtures the table, in Wexford for this one. Yeah,
a real sticky tie from Adrian. This Gorey team or season now over the last few years. You're right about their league form. I think they played 6-1-3.
Yeah.
On 2. Did they lose their first one last weekend, Adrian?
That's right. They lost the first game. Yeah, that was the first one.
I think they lost the first game. Shamrock Rovers beat them actually, and not to confuse people, there's a Shamrock Rovers. There's a Shamrock Rovers in Wexford. There's also a Shelburne United in Wexford, so you can get very mixed up with the teams. But they'll be focusing a lot on the FAI, Adrian. They're out of the Leinster Junior Cup. Can't remember who beat them in that. And the Leinster Senior Cup actually, which has probably affected a lot of the fixtures in Wexford at the moment. But their form generally has been very good, and they did beat Tramore in this last weekend, 3-0 away from home. You saw them against again away from home, scored 3 goals. Tight enough outfit, don't give much away. I think they've only conceded 5 goals in the league, Adrian, in the 6 games. So they're going to be tough enough to break down for Fairview. Fairview will be going into the game also without Stephen Bradley. And he's a big influence on that team in terms of how they play, because he gives players who are in front of him the freedom to play, knowing that he's around there to mop up when things go wrong, So Tricky tie, very, very hard to call at the moment. Obviously, Fairview are going to go into the game as favourites, Adrian, given their pedigree in this competition. But I've said it before about teams waiting in the long grass. And Gorey will be waiting in the long grass for Fairview in this. They'll be building up for this big time down in Wexford. And they'll be looking forward to the fixture. There's absolutely no doubt about that, Adrian.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, Aidan, because looking at it from Gorey's point of view, I've looked at maybe some of the games where they were knocked out in this competition. They'd be knocked out by teams that were, in a better position than them, had more stature than them. So they will be eyeing up this game to try and make their mark on the FAI Junior Cup and say, well, if we knock out Fairview, everyone will stand up and take notice of us then. That's the thing. Fairview will be the one that, looking at the draw and read themselves in St. Michael's, they'll be the one everyone wants to beat, really.
Absolutely. And you've seen that Gorey team in action, Adrian, and we've mentioned a couple of their players before, West Oscar trainer players, a couple of them well seasoned, nice balance of youth in there, but their back four, they don't give much away. They'll be steady enough, and they'll be a threat from set pieces as well.
That's one thing we definitely noticed in that game was the set piece threat,
Yeah, they'll be a huge threat from set pieces. So Fairview need to be on their guard. Obviously, as I said, going into the game as probably heavy favourites to win it. But it's a tricky tie. It's a banana skin tie, Adrian.
Yeah, and speaking of a tricky tie, Regional United certainly have a tricky tie in Dordile at home against Newmarket. Newmarket, obviously, they've won 7 of their 8 games in the league. They're unbeaten in Clare, actually, as we'd probably expect. Avenue are top of the league, but they've one more game played than Newmarket as well. We know about the likes of Owen Hayes, who has been a seasoned international with Ireland as well. Look, I suppose the best thing Regional have here is home advantage.
Home advantage. Obviously, the all-weather pitch will be a help as well, because Newmarket don't play in an all-weather pitch. But again, a really tough tie in paper, Adrian, isn't it? That Newmarket team, Owen Hayes, who's a current junior international, will probably be going to the Regions Cup. You have Davy McCarthy still there, who you'll be familiar with as well. Had a spell in Limerick, didn't he, with Jamesborough many years ago, but has been a big important player for Newmarket down the years. Darren Cullinan is still there, the fullback, and they've blended that in with a lot of young players playing really well this year. Lost the league and lost the cup last year to Avenue, but they're right back this year and up at the top of the league. As you say, no defeats, 1 draw. Was that to Avenue? I think they were 2-0 down to Avenue and came back and drew 2-2. So, played 8, won 7, drawn 1. They'll be happy enough with that. Have beaten Raheny in the last round, Adrian, last Sunday, 3-1 up in Dublin. Again, a tricky tie, Tricky tie for them. Came through it. Good victory. I think before that, they had an easy enough victory against a team from Wexford. I think it was Shelburne United, actually, that aforementioned team. They're down in the 1st division in Wexford, and they won 4-1 there. Very, very tricky tie for Regional. Newmarket will come in as favourites, in my opinion, given their pedigree in this competition and their pedigree in the Munster Junior. I know Regional have a decent pedigree as well, but this will be a tricky tie for Regional as well. There's no giving in this one. Should be a good game to watch, actually. Should be a lot of good football on the all-weather pitch there. Yeah,
absolutely. I suppose looking at Newmarket, Aidan, you'd obviously be familiar with them as well from your time with Jamesborough, but I remember, a game that I saw them against Pike. I'm pretty sure was that the quarterfinal or the semi-final of the Munster Junior Cup not that long ago. There was heartache for them in that game. They lost that game. There's been other games where they've just fallen short in either finals or semi-finals or quarterfinals in likes of FAI Cups and Munster Juniors. And what stage are Newmarket at now, Aidan? Has there been more of an influx of players coming into the team, or are they still relying on that kind of experience from those past few years?
No, they're changing the DNA a little bit, Adrian. They have those 3 or 4 experienced players, but they've brought in a lot of their youth players who have been reasonably successful in Clare for the last few years, and they've been trying to build a team now around those youngsters, and they're giving them a chance, which is great to see, because look, teams like Newmarket and that, they'd be kind of more parochial type of club. They'll tend to take from their own area and the surrounding hinterland, but they've been doing reasonably well this year. And you're right. Listen, they've been a bit like those Galway teams, Adrian, haven't they? They've been getting so far in these competitions, and they just don't seem to get over the line. I mean, in recent years, actually, they lost to Jamesborough when we got to the final of the Munster Junior there. They lost in the semi-final 1-0. I think Niall Henley got the goal in the last 5 minutes. And it was a very even game the same day. They could have easily won that game. They lost the Munster Champions Cup as well, either that year or the year before, I think, to St. Michael's down in Newhill. They played them down in 2 Mile Boris's pitch.
Yeah, it just seems to be a trait, doesn't it, in those bigger games?
Yeah, just can't seem to get over the line. So listen, they'll be keeping fingers crossed that they can go along with this competition and maybe do well in it, you know. But listen, you need a bit of luck, Adrian, don't you? You need that little bit of luck to get you over the line. Some teams don't have it, some other teams do.
And just to be fair to Newmarket, we are well aware that they've dominated in Clare in recent years. Well, we just mean in the likes of Munster Juniors and NFAIs is really where we're pinpointing, and the Champions Cup. I actually, it was one question I meant to ask you before we came on air, but is your man you'd be well acquainted with? He's surely finally retired now, and he won't like me saying that, in Pat Purcell, who was involved with Newmarket for years.
Yeah, Paddy's retired now. Kept going up to the last, shall we say, but he's now managing the team with a couple of coaches behind him, Adrian. And listen, you have a lot of experience there looking after that team now. Years and years of experience in the League of Ireland football at Limerick FC, obviously, and at Waterford. So they'll be learning loads off him, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose coming into the last Limerick side that we have to discuss, it's a team that I certainly didn't know anything about it when I saw it, but Old County FC from Dublin taking on Ballynanty. You were referring to them, they've only been 3 years in existence. From our conversations we had, Aidan, not a lot of people would know a lot about them, I suppose. So I suppose it's your turn to maybe enlighten them a tiny bit.
Yeah, well, a new club, Adrian, just started in 2019. I suppose the word I'd use from really is fairy tale stuff, Adrian, because I think you made a point off air to me that a lot of clubs would give their right arms to get to this stage of the competition, and they've never gotten there. Well-established clubs just can't seem to get there, and Old County have managed to do that, given that they're a new club and only a few years old. Went into the Leinster Senior League, but the kind of junior section of it in terms of the table. They're a major Saturday team, and they won promotion in their first season. Had a fantastic season, and they're going well again in their league this year. I think they've won 6, drawn 1. They haven't lost anything, so I think they're second in the league. Only conceded again 5 or 6 goals. Playing Leinster Junior, still in the Leinster Junior Cup, playing that this week, and have a very experienced manager behind them, Adrian, a guy called Maxi McCann, who I'm familiar with. Real experienced man, this fella. Managed Oliver Bond Celtic there in the last few years, and they've managed to sign 5 or 6 of those, especially the younger type of player, Adrian, from Oliver Bond. And the other thing about Maxi McCann is he has been involved in the Bohemians under 21 or under 20 setup, under 19 setup, and I think Shamrock Rovers and maybe Pats down the years. So he is familiar now with the players who drift from that age group, say, Adrian, back into junior football. And he will pick up a few of those players as well for this Old County FC team. They're based in Crumlin, Adrian. I think they're playing in Drimna and an all-weather pitch in Drimna. And they've been going well. They'll be well schooled. But obviously, if you're looking at the draw in reality, Adrian, this is a great draw for Ballynanty, even though it's away from home. And they will get, I'm not trying to put the kudos on them here, but they will go into this game red hot favourites, and will be expected to win, you know, comfortably. Old County beat Collinstown in one of the rounds of this 5-2, beat Evergreen in the last round. You're probably familiar with that, Adrian, on penalties. Yeah, that's a decent victory, Adrian. You know, Evergreen, a well-established team. And just one other little snippet for you, Adrian, and this will come as a surprise. Old County got a walkover in one of the earlier rounds in this from a team we're all very familiar with, Sheriff.
Jeez, that is a surprise.
Now, yeah. I'm not 100% sure what were the reasons for this. Obviously, Sheriff are in the Leinster Senior League now, so it could have been maybe Sheriff's over 35s. So I know they enter a team in the FAI, so I'm not sure what level of team they've entered. So we'll have to do a bit more research on that. But I do know that Sheriff did give them a walker over in the earlier rounds. So that's one for the books.
Yeah, that is surprising. And would it be right, Aidan, you were talking about Oliver Bond, would it be right in saying that was where Ballynanty came a cropper last season? in the FAI in a narrow loss. And you were saying that maybe a few of their players have defected over to All County. So, I don't know if it'll bring back some bad memories for Ballynanty in that respect. But obviously, you said they'd be red hot favourites. But we've mentioned it before, especially now away from home in the capital, that the Ballynanty lads will really be up for this. Now, considering last season's end result as well in that tie.
Yeah, they will, yeah. And they'll be going up well schooled with the management. We've spoken about the management team at Ballynanty before, Adrian. They're putting in a lot of work into the team, and they'll be going up there well schooled. They'll have a homework done. But it'll again a potential banana skin, Adrian, because you are still going into the unknown, because Old County have no history that you can look back on and say, they've done this
or something. Yeah.
You're going blind into this in many respects. So I'm quite sure Balla will take a trip up. The Balla lads will take a trip up to have a look. It should be easy to do that because they are a Saturday team, so they'll be playing matches on Saturday. So the lads should be able to get up and have a look at them and maybe see what's the story with them.
And two players who have made a big impact in recent weeks for Ballynanty and have given them real sternness in the centre defence, Tomás O'Connor, who obviously we'd be a bit familiar with for being Paddy O'Connor's brother of Limerick FC, he was involved. And Josh Adams, who obviously has played since all the way through since September, kind of burst onto the scene with those 2 goals against Fairview in that 4-1 victory in LIT. They seem to have made quite an impact in Ballynanty.
Yeah, we spoke about this earlier on the season, Adrian. And I said, I think Josh Adams is the find of the season. I think he's a tremendous centre half, and he has been a real leader in that team in the games I've seen. And he contributes so much in both boxes. Now, obviously, he's a defender, so you'd expect him to contribute in his own box in terms of making clearances and defending set pieces. But he's also contributed at the other end. He's a real threat from set pieces in the opposition box. Tomás O'Connor, fantastic sign, and obviously he was, I think, injured, Adrian, at the start of the season. Yeah, and he's come in and he's hit the ground running for them. Now he's not a big physical player, but he's a powerful player. He's good in the air, he's good in the ground, good with both feet, bit of a leader as well. Will pop up with an odd goal for you. But obviously you've mentioned 2 defenders, and you want them to defend, and these boys are doing the business. And when you have guys up front who have the power and pace of Hamidine, James Fitzgerald, Adrian Power, these players, you have something to build on. So that fulcrum at the back is very important for Ballynanty. And it was a fantastic victory the weekend. And in their 2 out-of-town games, Adrian, one big plus for them has been clean sheets. Yeah. Beat Everton away 3-0. Did the business at that end of the pitch. Beat Castlefin 5-0, and have also done the business at their own end of the pitch. Very, very important. And when you're going away from home, as there will be in the next round, you will need that base. Don't be giving that opposition a chance to get a goal ahead of you. Nice and tight. Keep that clean sheet. Try and nick a goal before half-time. And listen, hopefully you'll go on and do the business.
And I suppose the Ballynanty are set up, they can do both ways, I suppose, to a degree, Aidan. They have players who are comfortable in possession, but the fact that they aren't conceding those goals, likes of Hamidine Gavido, as you said, gives them the option, likes of Adrian Power, even into his later years, and likes of James Fitz, with that pace, they give you the option on the counter-attack as well.
They can go off and express themselves, Adrian. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And also remember, if you look at the team from the weekend, you Thomas Burns and Aidan Hurley sitting in front of that back 4. So, you look at that team overall, not an easy team to break down with the full backs you have, the likes of Dara Hughes and young Costello. So, really tough team to break down. And also remember, if you look at that squad, and I spoke about the squad last week, you have a lot of players that can't get into that team. Conor Keane wasn't in the 11 Sunday. Keane Fitz wasn't in the 11. Liam Burns. 3 very good players who've been playing regularly in that team weren't in the first 11 on Sunday. So a lot of competition there. So looking really good for Balla at the minute.
Yeah, absolutely. And to turn our attention now, we wish them the teams the best of luck, but we'll obviously be discussing those games in more detail as we come up to the ties taking place, where we're waiting on dates and times for those as well. To move our attention to the league game, which takes place this weekend, you've got Regional United taking on Pike Rovers. We've mentioned it before, Aidan. Regional United will be desperate to make an impression on the top 6 this year, considering the form during the top 6 last year. But, you know, in saying that, they're coming up against a team now who are going to be putting all their eggs in the league basket in Pike Rovers. I know they're still in the Lawson Cup, but I'm talking about Munster Junior and FAI. They're going to be putting all their eggs into that because they have a chance to take a real advantage here. They'll go 3 points ahead of Fairview Rangers and have another game in hand on them. They'll put themselves 5 points ahead of Ballynanty with the same games played if they get a victory here. So, you know, plenty of motivation here for Pike Rovers.
Yeah, massive game for Pike. Every game in the league now is a massive game, Adrian. It's so important. But their league form has been excellent. We've spoken about it several times in this podcast. And their form has been really good. Strengthened the squad with the signing of Shane Clark. He's hit the ground running with a goal or two already for them. And, you know, the squad is very strong. We said already it's a big squad, but it's very strong. And they're going into this game in great form. I saw Regional against Fairview in the league, Adrian, a couple of weeks ago. Very disappointed with what I saw. Didn't make a huge impression throughout the game. Was surprised with the team that was picked and the way the formation was throughout the match. You know, these are big games for Regional as well because they're still in the FAI, obviously, and you need to keep your form going. You also need results, Adrian. And at the start of the season, I'm going to go back to the bugbear about questioning league wins. Last year, Regional, I think, won 7 games in the league. So when they got into the top 6, they didn't make a huge impression in terms of winning matches and getting results. So this is a big test now. This is what we're looking to see. Will there be an improvement in them in terms of picking up points in this top 6? So we'll be watching this game Saturday evening to see how they do, because as I said, in that game a couple of weeks ago, they made no impression in the game in Fairview and didn't look like they were going to get anything out of it. Yeah,
they'll certainly be hoping for better in this occasion. I got an email during the weekend actually about the squad that would be selected to play against Treaty for the Limerick District League. So, you know, I was going to take the opportunity to call out some of those players and I suppose in some ways give them their moment to shine, particularly the lower league players who were selected as well. You had Stephen Bradley selected from Fairview Rangers, Adam Lipper and Gary Neville from Pike, Bradley McNamara from Janesborough, Gavin Dillon, Ashling Anacotty, Kieran O'Connell from Regional, Kieran Barr from Nina, Pa Boyle from Crew Park, and Andrew Layden from Coona, Gary Ward from Charleville, along with Aidan Mayer. Aled Harkin, who you'll be very familiar with, was selected from Mungret to play that fixture. Conor Madden from Geraldines, Peter O'Sullivan from Newport, Alex Kiley from Hyde. At Lunkard's, Danny Taylor, you'd also be familiar with that player, probably putting him through his paces during the year. And also a special mention for one of my own ex-teammates, Craig McNamara from Castle Rovers, who were picked out of the hat in 1A. Jason Keane of Lisnagroy, Adam Kelly of Abbey, Lucas Silva of Brazuca, and Rhys Dunn of Cardavan. I hope I haven't skipped through anyone fairly quick there. Actually, Stephen Hannon of Moyross, I'd almost forgotten as well, who'd be a very creative player for Moyross. So I suppose congratulations in order, Aidan, for those players who will take to the field celebrating the 50th anniversary against Treaty United in Jackman Park. Yeah, great recognition for all those players, Adrian. Obviously the Premier players, but also the lower division players who probably wouldn't get to get a game at this level. So listen, we'll be hoping that they do well when they get their chance on the pitch. And you know, if you're a Premier manager, you're going to be watching those lower division players with interest, aren't you? To see if you can maybe pick up something out of it. I suppose the only thing I would say, Adrian, I'm a little bit disappointed maybe that the 2 oldest clubs in Limerick haven't been recognised. As you know, Prospect Prospect, who are a former club of mine, in Limerick's oldest club, 1904, and Shelburne, who are the next oldest club, I think 1908, maybe 1910. I'd like to see, I have seen some sort of recognition there. Now, I know you can't please everybody, but given that they're Limerick's 2 oldest clubs, maybe they might come up with something to recognise those 2 clubs on the night as well. It'd be nice to see something done. But listen, we're all looking forward to the night, Adrian. It should be a great night. That's an interesting point. I hadn't really thought of that, Aidan. I suppose the only thing with Prospect going out of the league this year, maybe they didn't know what player to put in. Maybe one of the B players could have been selected. But yeah, it's an interesting point. It will be an interesting night. Actually, on that point where you were talking about the managers watching lower league players, a bit of an anecdote from the secretary of one of the managers who put forward one of the players from these clubs. They'll remain nameless. The manager got a phone call berating the secretary gave the manager a phone call, berating him for putting that player forward because he thinks he might be snapped up by one of the bigger teams in Limerick. So that'll just is proof in the pudding, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you can't blame him there.
Absolutely, yeah. So it just shows you that is a possibility. I suppose there'll be snipers everywhere in Jackman Park, possibly on the night. I suppose I wasn't going to touch on the Lawson too much, Aidan. I do expect that without being disrespectful to the likes of your Croom, who have been very strong this year in their own division, and we do know they have the likes of your AJ Maloney's playing for them. They will cause trouble in their own way to many teams, but I think Ballynanty will be too strong for them in that tie. Palace Green host Fairview, so they'd be the two ones where you'd be looking at joint killings, but it's unlikely it would happen. But there is one tasty tie, Aidan, that will take place. I'd imagine, just even going by league form. Crew Park will travel to Garryowen Green, a short trip, to take on Geraldines, who are top now as it stands, actually, of the Premier A division. There'll be a bit of spice to this in more ways than one, Aidan, because there's been maybe 3 up to 4 players even signed from Crew Park to Geraldines in the January or the winter transfer window, should I say. So, this looks like it'll be a competitive tie.
Yeah, certainly. The players I know of David Power and Adam Dorr, who I spoke about earlier on the season, Adrian, when they were playing with Crew Park. I think I picked them out in one podcast, actually.
Yeah, you did.
Very, very impressed with their performances, but very impressed with Adam Dorr. I think he's a fantastic young player, and hopefully he'll develop into a top player. And listen, they're going down there to Geraldines, and they're only going to strengthen the squad, and they're going top of the league now after the weekend results in Premier A. So they're going to be full of confidence. They have a home tie. Crew Park's form hasn't been great as of late. Adrian struggling a little bit. First of all, with results, and second of all, with the makeup of the squad. Obviously, lost a couple of players, so certainly an intriguing tie. I don't think will cause it a shock if Geraldines happen to win that match. I don't think people will be causing a shock given the form Geraldines are in. So obviously a lot to play for Crew Park, and it'll be a tasty tie. There's no doubt about it. And I think you win to the last 16 after that. So you just don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. It does promise to be a packed weekend between the Lawson Cup League action as well taking place in Limerick District League. Thanks once again to Aidan Ryan, as we had a packed show today. We obviously hope to have a packed show again next week, where we dissect the results and the ongoings from the weekend's ties and preview next weekend's ties as well. So thanks once again, Aidan, and we hope you can join us.